Oh, to Morrison. I suppose it won't surprise you to know that I'm a little bit in love with Morrison Pentworthy. He is a poet, bends towards the otherwise forgotten things, sandworm castings on the shore and the fractal repetition of trees. He is Morrison, a little bit in love with everything. So a story for him. It was just a year or two ago, many years after everything that happened. Eddie was now Edward White, photographer. He had tried to make sense of things too, those strange stories from old men and children about lights in the sky, fishy goings-on, people from nowhere and float tags that flew right up to the sun. He had taken pictures that my father might have called life fancied up, photographs that made the everyday extraordinary. There was an exhibition, small scale, one of those where the force unimaginable is contained in a municipal building, slinking quietly into the background of polystyrene cups and industrial carpets. No hype, miles from the Tate or the Turner Prize. Of the lights themselves, he captured somehow the hovering, the held breath beautiful and the hope of them. Despite himself, Edward White had created something great. Only a handful of people would know. But this is Morrison's story. Morrison liked to ride the buses sometimes randomly. He would take a 42 or an 11B or a 49A from the city centre and find out where they ended up. Later he might take the train back and admire the view over Killiney Bay or look into the back gardens with clotheslines and old trikes and fashionable extensions. Sometimes on the bus he would have his notebook on his lap. He would awake from this reverie and alight the bus, emerge blinking into some foreign thoroughfare, some anonymous corner of bricks and just juxtaposition. Enjoy the sensation of making sense of it. Serendipity was one of his touchstones. We all have them, whether it's magpies, astrology, anniversaries, betting odds or gods, or our favourite jersey or bugbear. We all need something to give us a guide rail. Serendipity. He went out of the bus, and in front of him was the small door on which was fixed modestly, quietly, details of this photographic exhibition. Inside, moving through the exhibition, he felt his chest inflate, words ramming against his vocal cord. His fingers hummed. Yes. He went home and wrote this poem on a scrap of paper, and his mother nearly threw it out when she went hoovering later in the week. Send. Send me a secret story in a song, just for me. Send me a grain of dust. Send me a heartbeat flipped, squeezed with lemon juice, soaked with sugar. Send me the sharp stars. Send me the winks in the water. Send me songs, photographs, breaths, petals, kisses, muddy puddles. Send me the satellites and the lights of Japan and the sizzle of electric eels. Send me the weave and the weft, the ragged starts and endings. Send. And between the lines, if you could see as microscopically as I do, yes, you would see the word Emily, repeated over and over as if it was the shape of his breath. For since he had seen her in the furniture shop 3.5 years ago, with her children and a disgruntled husband, Emily had become another of his guide rails. Emily, too, had gone to the exhibition. She was there on the opening night. She had seen a small write-up in the paper, and although she hadn't rung Eddie since he handed her his business card at the supermarket, where they met after all those years, she knew he'd be pleased to see her. It felt grown up, standing there with a glass of wine and listening to the speeches, watching Eddie from a distance when she'd only ever been wrapped around him. Lips, ideas, interests, limbs, kisses. She felt like a person away from the children. She went out into the fuzzy evening with a more solid feeling. She would not have gone back, only it was her mother's anniversary, and she was thinking about the sea. The sea healed, her mother had said, although for Barbara the healing had been only in the head. Eddie had taken some pictures that made the sea look like metal, rising, like the arc of a spaceship at the rim of the Earth from space. The way she had felt about Eddie, all that potential, was like the sea rushing in. But now, years later, it was all too late. The crest of the wave had fallen, and the sea had gone out again. Morrison with his notebook, his poetry, and the secret codes for his sightings of Emily. And yet that day, fated at the exhibition, he didn't recognise her. She was so still, naked of all the trappings of life, bustle. Then he saw her hand and remembered the way she had placed it on the dining table in Furnitureland. The leaf of the poem fell out of his book. There were red and gold highlights in her hair as she bent to pick it up. It was autumn then, and everything was tumbling. A slow light was coming through the window. She did not mean to read it, but "Send," she said as she held it in her hand. He watched as she kept reading. "Send," she read, and the rest, and she thought of all the things she wished she had been sent. "We met years ago," said Morrison. "You wanted me to sell you a table." And there it was, that quiet beginning. Later they sat together in a cafe with plastic flowers and dreadful coffee, despite being run by a middle-aged Italian with slicked-back oily hair.
It's 9:45.
There were plastic tablecloths, so they could not see the grain of the table underneath, and the whispers between the grain that silently said, "I love you." But many years later, Morrison Pentworthy stepped down from the podium at a reading of his poetry, now popular and admired, to the steady, constant arm of a white-haired lady with eyes like the sky, that strange, inconstant blue. Emily, Emily, Emily. Can you imagine their kiss?